The 2013 budget provided money for promised teacher flex benefits and board-certified teacher bonuses, but otherwise kept the budget flat. Some school superintendents say keeping their schools open has become an emergency.
Members, Senate Bill 1975 is before you now on third reading and final passage.
While lawmakers were still haggling over last-minute budget deals, in the days leading up to the end of the session, Tulsa area educators and community leaders held a news conference to give their last-ditch pleas for increased funding for education.
Ladies and gentlemen, we really are facing very dire circumstances right now in our public schools. If there is no new money that is put into the education funding formula for next year, the allocations really will be devastating for schools.
We are in a crisis situation. In Union Public Schools, we have lost more than $6.5 million since our budget in 2008, and our student population continues to grow.
Each school district represented here today has been faced with making some excruciatingly difficult decisions relative to the future lives of our young people, which means the future of Oklahoma. It astonishes me that any legislator could look at the potential of bringing new business into our state without examining very carefully appropriate funding for public education.
Tulsa Mayor Dewey Bartlett signed a resolution imploring lawmakers to increase money for schools.
I'm so hoping that our lawmakers down the turnpike will hear our concerns and do the right thing for our state, our citizens, but most importantly, our children who are our future.
But when the session ended May 25th, the appropriation for education remained flat. It enraged many educators who have cut their budgets to the bone during the past 2 years.
I am angry about the budget. I am upset about the budget. For 3 years, I stood right here and we talked about the cuts that we were putting in place, and we cut over $20 million from this school budget. We cut 225 teachers. We cut 150 administrative and other support positions. We changed the bells. We put in an energy ed program. I took furlough leave so that we could balance it. And now we have $350 million more, and this legislature could not find any way to put a fraction back in of 220-some million that has been lost to the state. They couldn't find a way to support children.
The cost of employing individuals goes up year after year after year after year. Meanwhile, year after year, a new batch of legislators comes in and says you need to do more with less, more with less, more with less. You can only do that so long. You can pull a rubber band as far as you want, but eventually it's going to snap.
Okmulgee School Superintendent Todd Williams is fed up.
I have seen the fiasco that goes on at the legislature every single spring. It's the same dog and pony show down there. People jockeying for power and position, people coming up with ridiculous nonsense bills that they put before the legislature to be voted on.
Williams says lawmakers put his district in jeopardy. On Tuesday, the Okmulgee School Board held a special meeting to decide on cutting teachers and staff, eliminating art education, and doing away with some school services.
This is a horrible situation. Nobody likes this. You did not get on the board to lay people off.
Attorney Brian Drummond represents the school district. He said the future of Okmulgee schools was at stake here.
And in Oklahoma, if a school district runs out of money and cannot pay its bills, the superintendent, state superintendent, has the right to come in and close the school district and annex it to another school district.
Those whose jobs were on the chopping block were told they were good employees, and if it were not for the financial straits of the district, they would still have their jobs. At the meeting, a due process hearing was held so those affected could appeal to keep their jobs.
I gave Okmulgee Public Schools everything that I had. Loyalty, dedication. So in my opinion, if everything is based on seniority, what happens to quality?
Teacher Candy Padfield showed up at the meeting to try and save her job, but since she was on a temporary contract, she had no say. Her job was gone.
I told them, I love you guys as my own kids. You're my 8 to 5 kids. I had to tell my 8 to 5 kids goodbye.
Assistant Principal John Smith said he didn't think the district was in such an emergency that his and other positions needed to be cut. But in a PowerPoint demonstration, Superintendent Williams explained the school would be insolvent, bankrupt by fiscal year 2013 if they didn't make the difficult cuts now.
Folks, I wouldn't be doing this if there was not an emergency. I do not like this. I'm doing this because I'm trying to get through to people. We are going to go broke if we don't stop spending more than we bring in. The reason we keep bringing in less and less and less is because student enrollment has dropped and because the state continues to send us less and less money. Every time they turn around, they try to find something else that they can gig us on or rob us over.
At the end of the more than 3-hour meeting, school board members agreed to all the superintendent's proposed cuts, except for eliminating art education. Beginning next year, Okmulgee will have 16 fewer teachers and administrators and 2 fewer clerical workers. During the 2 previous years, 18 positions were cut. The theme in Okmulgee is being repeated across the state. School boards and superintendents in other districts are now deciding their own personnel cuts. That includes Tulsa Superintendent Dr. Keith Ballard. He's trying to find a way to save 75 teaching positions in his district. Ballard has a pointed message for lawmakers.
You failed the children of Oklahoma. You failed the kids. You had the opportunity. The money was there. Again, you did not hear me criticizing when the money wasn't there. You saw our sleeves rolled up and you saw us going to work. You had the opportunity. The Speaker of the House has continually said $350 million new dollars, and we lost over 220 statewide. We lost over $20 million out of this budget. You heard what the superintendent from Union and Jenks said. Every single school district in the state is impacted by that. Don't tell me that we're meeting core services. We're not.
The Oklahoma Education Association says with costs on the rise, the standstill budget is actually a cut to education, the burden of which will be carried on the backs of Oklahoma's children.
Bartlesville State Representative Earl Sears is chair of the House Appropriations and Budget Committee. Chairman Sears, you are a former educator. How do you respond to the frustration, the anger expressed by school leaders over the education appropriation?
Well, I did hear your segment, and I'm disappointed, but I also must say I truly understand their frustration. There is no question that education needs some additional funding. We have stated that on numerous occasions, and I personally will continue to do what I can to make sure that public education will continue to receive funding. But some of their frustrations just went a little bit too far. But again, I'm disappointed with it, but I understand it. But again, I want the listeners to understand the other side of the coin as well. That money that they talked about was there. There is no question. But on the same token, there are other state agencies in our great state that also has gone through huge downturn and cuts as well, and budgets have been cut. The growth that we had this year, something I'm very, very proud of, that this budget we put together this year had 0 cuts. For the past 4 years, education, corrections, public safety, health care, everybody has received cuts. This year, the budget that we put forth had 0 cuts, plus we had targeted increases in those agencies that we call that are core services to our great state. And I'm very proud of that. And was it enough? Of course. They are frustrated that it wasn't enough, but the amount of monies that we had, we were able to go in and make adjustments into those other core programs that are just as equally important. Now, education, without question, is absolutely a cornerstone of or not only of our state budget, but it, quite frankly, is the foundation that we all know and accept. But also, corrections have issues. Public safety has issues. So we made a point to make sure that there was funding for all of them. But the thing I'm proudest of, we had 0 cuts. And, you know, and the only thing that I want to the only other comment I would like to make is just where do we get the thank you to the state legislature that made it a priority after 4 years that we did not cut? And then the comment about really the standstill budget is really a cut. Well, you can do the numbers and play the math all you want, but the bottom line to it is we gave additional money to education. We've stopped cutting education. We gave them more money this year that it will help stabilize some of their programs. So again, disappointed, frustrated, but the clear understanding, I understand their frustration.
Mr. Chairman Earl Sears, representative from Bartlesville, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.